Patrick Christie's on your TV, radio and, of course, online as well. You really can't miss us, can you? Make sure that you get in touch with your views, as usual, gbviews@gbnews.uk. I'll go to those throughout the show, but first it's time for your latest headlines.
Good morning. It's coming up to 1 minute past 10. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister's facing calls to expel his former Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher, from the party after he quit following a drunken incident. In his resignation letter to Boris Johnson, Mr Pincher admitted drinking too much and embarrassing himself and others at an event on Wednesday evening. Labour's questioning how he's still allowed to be a party member and say the Conservatives are mired in sleaze and scandal. Shadow Attorney General Ellie Reeves told GB News this is just the latest in a string of incidents.
This is a Conservative government completely mired by sleaze, and it just isn't good enough. You know, we had 2 by-elections last week, one because a Conservative MP was convicted of child sex abuse, and another because a Conservative MP was caught watching pornography in the House of Commons chamber. Standards in public life have got to be higher than this, and Boris Johnson has got to get a grip of it.
Well, Secretary of State for Wales, Simon Hart, told GB News it's too early to say exactly what action should be taken.
Well, I think this only came to light, don't forget, at about 8 o'clock last night. So it's early days yet in terms of how the Chief Whip and others decide to proceed, ascertaining precisely what the facts were, making sure that people who felt exposed to the particular story get properly looked after. There's quite a lot of moving parts to this which need to be resolved during the day. So I think I hesitate to try and sort of second guess or prejudge, what may or may not happen as a result of all of this.
Russian missile strikes have killed at least 18 people in the Ukrainian port city of Odessa overnight. Officials say the attacks destroyed residential buildings and 2 holiday camps. Emergency workers are still looking for survivors. Over 30 people are understood to have been injured. In his daily address, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Moscow's still focusing its firepower in the east of the country.
The situation in Donbass remains the harshest. The fire superiority of the occupiers is still felt very much. They simply took everything from their reserves to hit us in the Luhansk region, in the Donetsk region. I'm grateful to everyone who defends our positions in such conditions. It's true heroism.
Despite criticism, China's leader says the one country, two systems model of ruling Hong Kong works and must continue. A warning, the following contains flashing images. Xi Jinping visited as part of the celebrations to mark 25 years since the UK handed over the territory to China. And while on his first trip outside the mainland in 2 years, the Chinese leader mounted a stern defence of the political system. It follows recent international criticism of China for increasing its control of Hong Kong and stifling free speech. Police have released an e-fit image of a sex attacker they're hunting in East London, who they warn may have struck more than once. A 24-year-old woman was subjected to a serious sexual assault on the 3rd of June after a night out in Newham. She described the suspect as being of Asian appearance and possibly in his mid to late 30s. Detectives are urging anyone who thinks they recognise the man to get in touch. Nurses and pharmacists will now be able to certify sick notes. The move is part of plans to help alleviate pressure on NHS GPs. Other health professionals, including physiotherapists, can also issue the documents, which are now called fit notes. The new changes cover England, Scotland and Wales, with Northern Ireland expected to follow suit. Police Scotland officers are to withdraw their goodwill in a dispute over pay. Although they're banned by law from striking, the move's being called the most overt demonstration of action by police in Scotland in over 100 years. From 5 o'clock this afternoon, officers won't take radio equipment home when their duty ends, nor will they start their shifts early. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon urged those involved to work together constructively. And millions of families are having to pay an extra £250 a year on energy bills because of poorly insulated homes. Councils across the UK say 3 million households are paying extra as heat is wasted through walls, roofs and windows. The local government association is calling for a redoubling of efforts to insulate homes to help those struggling with the rising cost of living. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens now, though. Let's return to the point with Patrick.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. We've nearly made it. Nearly made it. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christie's, on your TV, radio and, of course, online as well. We've got a great show lined up for you to kickstart your day. So, here's what's coming up. Tory Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher, which is an ironic title, I think, has resigned following allegations that he groped 2 men while intoxicated. Is this another case of just a bad apple, or is this a wider problem within the culture of government? Plus, despite the ongoing war in Ukraine destroying thousands of lives, we speak to an amazing British man just 3 kilometres away from the front line in Ukraine, delivering pet and nutritional food to starving animals in the war-torn regions. All too often, it's animals who suffer, well, just as much, if not worse, than the humans, isn't it, as well in these situations? So good on him, as far as I can tell. Right, and are you worried about your summer holidays? Well, we get the latest from airports across the country about what the upcoming strikes could do to threaten your time in the sun. I'm supposed to be going on holiday tomorrow morning, so I certainly hope that basically everything's OK. Anyway, we've got all of that coming up and much, much more right across the programme. You can get in touch, as usual, with your views, gbviews at gbnews.uk. Paul already has. He says, happy Friday, Patrick. Well, happy Friday to you, Paul. Should we do a show then? Right, let's get stuck right in. Tory Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher has resigned now from government following his drunk behaviour at the Carlton Club. We've all been there, however, saying that he had drunk far too much and had embarrassed himself and others. Well, the MP for Tamworth in Staffordshire is alleged to have groped 2 fellow male guests at the event. Now, in his resignation letter, he told the PM, quote, "I owe it to you to resign." So there we go. Well, earlier, GB News spoke to the Secretary of State for Wales, Simon Hart MP, about how the Tory party is currently dealing with these further allegations of sexual misconduct.
First reaction with all of this is always one of, sadness, sometimes really rather than anger, because so many people are affected by this. Clearly, massive misjudgments appear on the face of it to have been made, and I think our first priority, rather than turning this into a sort of party political discussion, which it sounded almost dangerously like it was about to be, that we look after the interests of people who've been adversely affected by this. They must be and will remain our absolute first priority.
Yeah, we also spoke to the Shadow Solicitor General, Ellie Reeves MP, to establish what the opposition's position is on this matter.
This is a Conservative government completely mired by sleaze, and it just isn't good enough. We had 2 by-elections last week. One because a Conservative MP was convicted of child sex abuse, and another because a Conservative MP was caught watching pornography in the House of Commons chamber. Standards in public life have got to be higher than this.
Very quiet about Barry Gardner, though, aren't they? Anyway, let's go to the inbox now. GBviews at gbnews.uk. Derek's been on. Thank you, Derek. He says standards in public life need to be higher. So will all Labour MPs please resign? There we go. Well, I think you might be barking up the wrong tree there, Derek, I'll be honest with you, but, the sentiment is there, of course. A bit of praise for Tom Harwood, most of it coming from himself, as usual, but Sue's been on. Well done, Tom. That was the most professional and informative interview I've seen in a long time with Jacob Rees-Mogg. So there we go. Oh, wait, no, sorry, that has come from Tom. OK, all right, fair enough. Sorry, he emails in sometimes. He emails in. But anyway, we're moving on now. A British man is risking life and limb to save Ukrainians and their pets. In the UK, Nick Tad is a wildlife photographer and the General Operations Director of Property Tribes. But in war-torn Ukraine, he is using his position now as trustee of K9 Rescue International to rescue more than 200 dogs 189 cats. There's a touch of the pen farthings about this. Do you remember the withdrawal from Afghanistan there, where, well, we've kind of rescued loads of dogs and cats. Pen farthing did, of course. So there's kind of a whiff of this, isn't there? But anyway, he's also raised over £130,000 for the charity and helped deliver tons of food and supplies to those displaced by the war. And guess what? He's only here right now. I'm honoured to be joined by Nick Tad. Nick, thank you very, very much. Firstly, you're an absolute national treasure. Look, I suppose, what made you want to do this, you know?
Yeah, good question. It was just at the start of the war, really. It was, we all watched it unfold, and I just thought to myself, look, I've got some time. I've got a couple of quid in the pocket. I'll just go over there and just do whatever I can, really. That was in the beginning of March, and I'm pretty much still here. I mean, I do come home periodically and then fly back out again, but the harsh reality is that the people over here need the world behind them. And that's the truth. They actually do need the world behind them. I did some interviews this morning with a couple of ladies who had their houses bombed from underneath them. And they're just so appreciative of the fact that the world is watching and hasn't given up on them. And that really motivates you to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just looking at some of those images there that we were playing over the top of what you were saying, and it's tragic stuff. And I think, look, the people are always helpless in war, of course. Innocent civilians are as well. And it's sometimes often forgotten that so are animals, so are pets. And in a way, they're more helpless, aren't they? Because humans at least know what's going on for a start, I suppose, and can at least maybe try to get to safety or try to sort themselves out or something. Whereas, you know, cats and dogs and other pets they mustn't have a clue what's going on, mustn't they? But, I mean, how have you felt being over there and seeing it firsthand? We'll do the human perspective second. Let's do the animal perspective first. How bad is it for the animals over there in Ukraine at the minute?
I suppose being an animal lover is a good question, but I suppose being an animal lover first and foremost, it's hurtful. It really is quite hurtful to see them in so much pain. In the early days of the war, I was working more over on the western side of Ukraine, around Lviv and stuff like that. We were picking up animals there that had been left tied to a train station, or a bus station, where they come across the country. But then the bus drivers or the train drivers weren't allowing them on the trains to go across, and so they literally got left tied to a lamppost. And of course, these are homed pets. These are not street dogs. So these aren't the most savviest of street dogs, and the stress in them was immense. I mean, PTSD, I think, is the correct terminology here. But as we've gone more to the east, and I'm in the east as we speak. Yesterday, we're in some small villages that have just been, well, essentially demilitarized, and we're still coming across dogs and indeed cats, but mainly dogs that have just been left in a house. So one of them has been left in a cage. It's a huge dog, been left in a cage, and his neighbour has been feeding it, but he's been too frightened to go in there and get it because it's such a huge dog.
Yeah.
So we're still seeing, 4 months on, we're still seeing animals being left tied to a house or a cage. It's terrible. No,
it is terrible, and I've held my hands up to this before, and I'll do it again, because I got something wrong quite early on, actually, in my time here at GBNews, when we were pulling out of Afghanistan. I think I'd only been here a few weeks, actually, and I kind of made the point. I was like, look, these animals, these cats and dogs that Pen Farthing was trying to get, we shouldn't devote, was what I said, was, we shouldn't be devoting really any resources to that. We should focus on the human beings. And the reason I say I was wrong about that is because the public reaction to that was basically, no, you're wrong. These cats and dogs need to be evacuated. And it's always stuck with me, that. And it's really hammered it home to me that we are genuinely a nation of animal lovers, OK? And so animals like cats and dogs are as important to a lot of people in this country as human beings. But we have spoken a bit now about the animals. So just give me that human perspective as well, because having seen things firsthand, how desperate is it?
Desperate. Very desperate. I mean, OK, so if you, like I said, if you travel from the west to the east, places like Lviv and Kyiv, Lviv really hasn't been touched too much. It has had some some stuff going on there. As you get further to the east, you go down to places like Kyiv. Obviously, Kyiv itself was more or less hit. The villages on the outskirts, places like Bucha, which I've been to those villages, and they were in a terrible mess. But again, largely now the Russians have left. They're sort of getting some form of normality, if there is going to ever be such a thing. But if you get further down to the east and you get down to more or less the front line itself, and you get to the places where they've just really just been demilitarized, the people there are just traumatized. I mean, yesterday, like I said, yesterday we were in a village, and I don't want to sound rude about them, but they're wandering out of the houses like zombies because they just don't know how to act. They get bombed daily. I mean, as we're delivering the food, we've got missiles flying across our heads, and you could hear the thump and the crunch as they land. And these people have to put up with this daily. And they've got no gas, they've got no electric, they've got no food, they've got no dog food. There even was one bloke who was saying to us that he can't feed his dogs. He's got porridge, can't feed the dogs porridge because he can't cook it because he's got no gas. And if he lights a fire and cooks the porridge with the fire, the Russians see the smoke and bomb him. So from that perspective alone, I know I've included animals in that again, but from that perspective, it's devastating, utterly devastating. But I can't tell you, I must stress this. They are aware that the world is watching, and they are incredibly, incredibly, tearfully grateful that everyone's helping out the best way they can. But we just got to keep doing it. That's the truth of it.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And are you looking to try to bring any of these dogs back to the UK?
No. Right. What we're doing, we in the early days of the war, we were bringing them into Poland. There's a fantastic facility in Poland, Przemyśl, called the Ada Foundation. The Ada Foundation were taking the animals and quarantining them and getting them rehomed, and they've done it very successfully. But the Poles and the Romanians and the like have shut the borders now, so we can't really bring any animals across. Certainly not any legal ways of bringing them across. Look, we do need to release the pressure valve because obviously the animals are heading to the west, and when there is a pressure valve, and it is bad. There's so many in shelters in and around the border going over to Poland. So what we're trying to do at Canine Rescue International is build what's called a traces clinic and shelter on the border. Now, traces is the way that is sort of it's around biosecurity, and it's what's usually used for commercial animals, so pigs, cattle, whatever. And they tend to go across borders with a little bit more impunity because the biosecurity is a lot stronger. What we need to do is we need to do the same thing for the companion animal. So again, we can get the animals moving across the borders. And that's really, it's a sort of a medium to long-term project because obviously we need to dot these all across Eastern Europe, really. But right now, that's just a one string to the bow that we need to do. We have to get the animals moving.
No, absolutely. Now, I believe you've got a fundraising page, which I think we can show. It's on the screen right now. Just talk us through it, please, mate. Nick, just talk us through how people can donate, where it is.
Okay, thank you for that. So it's caninerescueinternational.org. That's caninerescueinternational.org.
And it's, by the way, sorry, just worth saying, it's the letter K and the number 9, OK? K9. Correct. Yeah, go on, carry on, mate, carry on.
Good shout. So, yeah, caninerescueinternational.org. Just donate there. All of the money goes to what we're doing. There are no salaries being paid. There's no, we're not driving around in fancy cars. This is solely for that job. So we need to build those shelters. We need to keep the feeding going on. We need to keep the food moving to the east because that is an immediate thing. But in the sort of the medium to long term, we need to get this shelter built so we can start moving the animals freely across the borders and release the pressure valve.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully, I'm just having a look here, sorry, because I've got a screen to my side. It's k9rescueinternational.org /donate. There we go. And people can see it on the bottom of the screen right there, actually, just underneath me. Nick, thank you very much, and look, good luck to you, and please stay safe. Please stay safe. OK, Nick Tad there, obviously, of Canine Rescue International. Right, after the break, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be talking to someone from the Royal Mail about their 50 years of Pride stamps. That's after the weather.
Morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update. It's more of the same today. Some sunshine around, yes, but Most places seeing some heavy showers as well. A bit more of a breeze blowing today, which means the showers will move through a little faster. Keeping our eye on this weather system, that's going to bring some wet and windy weather to the northwest this evening. High pressure is trying to build in from the south, so perhaps not quite as many showers here today compared to yesterday, but it's a fairly wet start across the northeast. That rain slowly pushing its way across the Northern Isles. And then look at that, the showers just break out almost everywhere by late morning. Heavy downpours likely, particularly this afternoon over eastern England and northeast Scotland. Some downpours could cause some problems. A lot of spray surface water on the roads for the Friday evening commute, but not too many for Wales, southwest England this afternoon, turning drier too for Western Scotland and Northern Ireland until here that next weather system moves in, bringing a band of quite intense rain and some really gusty winds picking up through this evening. That band of wet and windy weather pushes into Scotland overnight and then slowly spreads across England and Wales into the weekend. Ahead of it, we'll see some clearer skies developing over eastern England. Temperatures may drop down to single figures in rural areas. On to the details for Saturday, and we're looking at this band of rain crossing England and Wales. Some uncertainty about the exact timing, so if you've got plans, keep up to date with the forecast. It does look as if East Anglia and the southeast will stay mostly dry tomorrow with sunny spells, and it should turn a bit drier in the afternoon for Wales and western parts of England. But this line of rain will be fairly slow moving over the Midlands, northeast England, and then Scotland and Northern Ireland. Again, just that mixture of bright spells, but also some fairly heavy showers. More showers to come on Sunday, mostly though across the north and the west. It does look as if things will turn a little drier and brighter as we go through into next week, with temperatures also just starting to rise a little in the south.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there. Right, it's 10:24. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, right here on GB News, live on your TV, online and radio this morning. Happy Friday, everybody. We've nearly made it through the week. Let's see it off right. Royal Mail managers have voted to strike, though, over their job cuts, joining the growing procession of rail workers, barristers, bus drivers, telecommunication employees. I haven't said that. They've been on strike for years anyway, haven't they? Anyway, pilots, hospital staff as well. I mean, can you imagine if I went on strike? No one would notice, though, to be fair, actually. But anyway, they are looking set to make this summer a slow and disrupted one. They're trying to maximise the impact, aren't they, really? Well, I'm joined this morning by David from the Royal Mail. So the Royal Mail have issued 50 years of Pride stamps available from today. I mean, it seems to me like there's probably more to get stuck into than that. Shall we start with the strikes? Are you going on strike?
I'm not going on strike, and I should just say to any of your viewers that at the moment there are no strikes at Royal Mail. The ballot that you might be referring to is still live, so it's still up to CW members whether or not they choose to support strike action. We very much hope that they won't go on strike. We feel that there are no reasons to go on strike. We support our workers who've done a fantastic job throughout the pandemic and continue to do a great job keeping the country connected. We think it's really important for all of your viewers and for many others across the country that we keep delivering because, frankly, there are too many competitors out there waiting to eat our lunch. So the last thing we need is to gift them the work that we currently carry.
Is the argument? I mean, look, I'm very anti-strike. Last week, I staged my own strike outside the RMT, and well, they gave me a bit of a kicking, actually, quite literally. But is the argument not that they're going to lose their jobs and they are going on strike about that? Is that the issue?
No, there is no threat of redundancies being caused around this ballot. It's simply about pay, and it's about the gap between what the company can afford and what people would like to earn. Now, look, I'm the same as everybody else. We'd all like a pay rise, and I'm sure we could all pick a figure. But, inflation is where it is right now. But that affects the business and the people who use Royal Mail as much as the people who work for it. And so going forwards, we simply don't know what our company performance is going to be over the year ahead. But what is guaranteed is that if we go on strike, then quite honestly, we're not going to have a business because that business is going to go to our competitors.
OK, so look, I understand that. And I mean, it's a similar argument in a way to one I was making about the RMT, which is that if you keep going on strike, I think it would speed up the process of robot trains, personally. But anyway, there we go. I mean, I think the DLR ran perfectly because they don't have anyone driving the train. So, there is kind of that argument. But obviously, you do want to see people in work. Can I just ask, what is the average salary of someone at the Royal Mail?
Well, the average postie earns around, I think, from memory, 26,000 a year. But forgive me if I don't have the exact figures. I didn't come on to talk about potential industrial action. I came on to talk about our wonderful new Pride stamps. But, we earn on average, a postie earns on average 40% more than somebody comparable in our sector. Yeah. And as I said, there is a lot of competition because we are now primarily a parcels company that delivers letters. So if you think about who perhaps was delivering to you during the pandemic, there were many other parcel companies other than Royal Mail. And that, frankly, is what worries me, that our business will actually go to them if our people go on strike.
I appreciate that you didn't initially come on to talk about that. It just felt like quite a big issue, so I thought I'd lead in with that.
I'm more than happy to reassure your viewers that at the moment there is no planned strike action, and it can still be avoided, and we're very keen that it will be. OK, let's talk about gay pride. So you've got a 50 years of Pride stamp, have you? I mean, tell us more about why you do, because we've got, as I raised yesterday on air, by the way, so we've got an office above us. I couldn't tell you what they do, right, because there's never anyone in there, right? They decided to hold a Pride Month event, right? So when you have to come down the stairs to GBNews, there's an office there, and all you can see in it are rainbow and trans flags. But there's no one there because they're all working from home. So that is the least well-attended Pride event that the world has ever seen. But how's yours going? Well, I can't speak for whatever organisation it is that does or doesn't work above your office. But what I can tell you is that we've got a very vibrant LGBT and friends group within Royal Mail. It's not exclusive to people who identify other than straight. It's welcome to everybody. And I think that tomorrow, if you happen to be in central London when the Pride event will be on, I'm quite sure it will be very well attended. But these stamps mark 50 years since the first gay Pride March, which was, I think, attended by only 700 people. And, of course, the country and perhaps the world have travelled a long way in 50 years. And certainly in this country, there is a lot closer equality than there was 50 years ago. What we're celebrating is that journey
from that early day 50 years ago when it was actually dangerous for people to identify as gay and to walk openly through the streets holding hands.
Look, it absolutely was. Can we just bring up, sorry to do this, but you know that last picture, the last stamp that we just brought up before? Can we just bring that one up again? Is that all right? Let's just have a look at it now. Because what you've done here is smash all of the boxes. You've got a lady in a wheelchair with purple hair, a trans Sikh, a gay man with angel wings on his back, and what looks like two librarians kissing. I mean, what's all that about?
Have you ever been to a Pride event?
No. Yes, actually, I did. Yes, I did. There's a big one in Manchester. I walked through it once, yeah.
There you go. So you'll probably recognise that stamp represents what a typical Pride event is like. It's an
so it's not just
event
it's not just shameless box ticking then.
Anybody is welcome. I've been to Pride events, and I'm delighted that we are celebrating, as all our stamps do. Actually, our stamps programme is designed to represent all aspects of what's good about this country. And I think what's good about the Pride movement is that it's not exclusive. It doesn't say that if you're not identifying with a particular label, you can't come in. When I've been, it's families with young children, it's older people. Let's remember, the people who were originally on the Pride event in 1972 are themselves now probably quite old. And I think it's fantastic that the Royal Mail, a 506-year-old institution, is celebrating something that has shown this country, I think, to be a world leader.
Hey, I must say, I tell you what, you're very good at your job. All right, well done, David. It was good stuff. That I did enjoy it. A nice one. Yeah, well, yeah, you're live with inflation. Nice to have you on the show, mate. Good stuff. All right, OK. That's David from the Royal Mail. David from the Royal Mail. There is a joke in there somewhere about the stamps usually just having the Queen's head on it, but I couldn't possibly make it, OK? So anyway, right, OK, so coming up after the break. As I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a big walkout of airline and airport staff this summer. Will you be affected? Travel expert Simon Calder will let you know after these headlines.
It's coming up to 10:33. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister's facing calls to expel his former Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher, from the party after he quit following a drunken incident. In his resignation letter to Boris Johnson, Mr Pincher admitted drinking too much and embarrassing himself and others at an event on Wednesday evening. Labour's questioning how he's still allowed to be a party member and claims the Conservatives are mired in sleaze and scandal. Secretary of State for Wales, Simon Hart, told GB News it's too early to say exactly what action should be taken.
It only came to light, don't forget, at about 8 o'clock last night, so it's early days yet in terms of how the Chief Whip and others decide to proceed, ascertaining precisely what the facts were, making sure that people who felt exposed to the particular story get properly looked after. There's quite a lot of moving parts to this which need to be resolved during the day.
Russian missile strikes have killed at least 18 people in the port city of Odessa in southern Ukraine overnight. Officials say the attacks destroyed residential buildings and 2 holiday camps. Emergency workers are still looking for survivors. Over 30 people are understood to have been injured. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Moscow is still focusing its firepower in the east of the country. Police officers in Scotland are withdrawing their goodwill amid an ongoing dispute over pay. They're banned by law from striking, but the move's being called the most overt demonstration of action by police in Scotland in over 100 years. From 5 o'clock this afternoon, off-duty officers won't take radio equipment home with them, nor will they start their shifts early. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon urged those involved to work together constructively. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy $1.211 US and 1.157 euros. The price of gold currently stands at £1,482.90 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the finance report on GB News, Investments That Matter.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there. A very good morning, everybody. It's 10:37. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, right here on GB News, live as ever on your TV, online and radio this morning. Now, onto a story that some of our viewers may find upsetting, OK? Crisis charity Hestia has warned that domestic abuse refugees are struggling to support victims due to the refugees are struggling to support victims due to the ongoing cost of the living crisis. Now, according to their research, demand for spaces in their centres rose from 30% from January this year, and those survivors who may be ready to leave the refuge are simply unable to afford it. Now, Domestic Violence Prevention Manager Joe Riley spoke to Stephen and Anne, of course, this morning about their findings.
We know that during the pandemic, there were more and more cases of domestic abuse. And at the same time now, we've got a cost of living crisis, which is making the very places that those people ought to be able to go to difficult to maintain.
I think that's exactly right. You know, in the pandemic, as you say, we saw that escalation of domestic abuse for many victims. And a huge increase in demand for the refuge spaces that Hestia offers. And in fact, we opened 2 emergency refuges just to try and meet that demand during that time. And there's lots of evidence that, you know, economic recessions, those pressures, they put more pressure on those households where domestic abuse already exists. And you do see escalations in domestic abuse, it becoming more violent, more frequent. And that's what we're beginning to see. As you were saying, we saw a 30% increase in the number of women phoning Hestia and trying to get a space in one of our refuges since January. And it's only the early days of the cost of living crisis. So we're really concerned about that trend. And at the same time, you know, when a woman and often her children arrive at one of our refuges, often they literally arrive with the clothes on their back. They've left everything behind. They have nothing. Typically, we would either support women to make applications to local grants, or we actually raise funds from donors. And so we have a pot of money that we're able to support women, you know, to buy white goods and to buy those basics as they move into their next accommodation. But there isn't a kind of a system for that to happen anyway. And so we're going to have to increasingly rely on donations and the generosity of the public to enable us to support women to move on, because you can't have a mum and 2 children who've experienced all of that trauma move into a house where they haven't got a bed. I mean, it's not cheap to support somebody, because obviously you're paying for the accommodation, but also in a refuge we would provide specialist refuge workers to work with the women, to work with them on their trauma. Hestia always fundraises to make sure that we have children and family workers to support the children, to do all of that work.
But I mean, food, fuel, you know, as you said, bedding, everything like that must cost a fortune to even set one up.
And the main infrastructure for supporting refugees is provided normally by local authorities, but there just weren't enough. You know, it's always been the kind of Cinderella service of the funding world, and there just weren't enough bed spaces. So we did have to raise, you know, hundreds of thousands of pounds to be able to open those emergency bed spaces. And we'd hoped to be closing them, but actually now we've made a commitment to keep them open as we see these numbers rising. I mean, I would want to give credit to some of the businesses that are already doing a lot in this space. So, for example, we've done a lot of work with Uber over the years, and they offer free rides to our refugees for women, you know, who can't afford to get to the refuge. We've done a lot of work with some of the banks like HSBC and TSB to provide safe spaces in their bank branches, to offer free setup for bank accounts. Even Royal Mail offers a free service for women in our refuges to do mail redirect, which is actually a really expensive service.
Very important.
And really important. And they, you know, and so there are businesses that are really stepping up into that space. And it, you know, it's important that as a whole community we become part of this response. So absolutely. But there's just so much that needs to happen in this space. So much.
Yeah, I mean, the domestic abuse stats at the moment are absolutely shocking, aren't they? And if you're watching us on TV, you'll be able to see this number. If you're listening to us, of course, as you can on radio or online, I'll read it out to you right now, because this is the domestic abuse helpline, OK? And it's 0808 2000 24/7. I'll read that one more time. 0808 2000 24/7. And if you are watching or listening to this now and you're in one of those situations, can I just say that, you know, everyone here is behind you, and just, if you can, please try to get help. That number one more time is 0808 2000 24/7. I know it's difficult, but if you can make that break, then your life will be much better for it. All right, let's move away from that now. So, airline staff are walking off the job across not just the UK, by the way, but Europe too, meaning those looking to get away this weekend are in for some serious... Oh, flipping out, I'm going away tomorrow. What? This is how I find out. Anyway, right, serious delays. Those flying to Spain or Scandinavia, I'm safe so far. Flying out or into Heathrow, I'm safe again. Or travelling on Ryanair or British Airways, I'm in the money here, are most likely to be affected by industrial action this weekend. But obviously it's a real shame for anybody else. Here to explain more is travel correspondent for The Independent and a friend of the channel, Simon Calder. Simon, I think let's start with the most important thing first. If someone hypothetically was flying from Gatwick to Florence at about 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, how likely are they to go on holiday?
Oh, look, it's actually looking quite encouraging, not least because Florence, it's a fairly minority destination, so there aren't that many alternative flights. However, just suppose there was such a person in that position, Patrick, I would be looking at alternative routes just in case it all goes, as they say, sadly, in the travel industry, tango uniform. So I would be looking at flights to Pisa, because from there, of course, it's just an hour or so by direct bus from the airport to Florence, or indeed by the very good train system. So I would be fairly relaxed. And in fact, the vast majority, we've got schools breaking up, of course, in Scotland, in Northern Ireland, schools out, everybody's setting off. They are, as it were, the front line in first contact with the peak season of July and August. And there's stresses and strains. Can you believe COVID is coming back to haunt us? Aer Lingus are attributing a number of cancellations of their flights to and from Dublin because of staff having COVID. But most of us are going to get where we need to be.
OK, all right, and obviously, look, I was, desperate to find out about my own personal circumstances, but there will be, on a more serious note, genuinely more serious note, there are people who will be really, really badly affected. And from what I can tell anyway, Is Heathrow kind of the worst offender when it comes to this at the minute? What's going on?
Right. If you're looking at the total number of cancellations, British Airways to and from Heathrow is cancelling far more than any other airline in the UK, about 120 flights a day. Yesterday, it went up to about 135 because Heathrow said you've got to cancel a whole load of your flights. And 30 flights in total were cancelled at Heathrow, including on Virgin Atlantic and other airlines. Now, yes, it's been stressed, but the cancellations were made in order to get everybody else where they needed to be. And statistically, the odds of you getting to your destination roughly when you're supposed to are pretty high. Yes, we've got, we're looking here at Heathrow Airport, strike threat on British Airways, passenger service agents threatening to walk out. We don't have any dates for that yet. It's really important to know. And they have to give at least 2 weeks' notice. EasyJet cabin crew on strike today. The only effect I've seen on the UK is the early flights from Gatwick and Birmingham to Malaga appear to have been affected by that. Ryanair, their cabin crew in Southern Europe are striking. That's having interesting effects. A number of short-haul domestic flights within Spain have been cancelled. But I've been talking to other passengers on Ryanair who found the same as me, which is that effectively the plane goes and the form of industrial action is that they won't sell you an overpriced cup of tea. So, yeah, I'll take that. If the plane goes and lands safely, then that's all looking good. Looking further ahead, though, the big problem is can the airlines cope? Today, Gatwick has imposed a cap on the number of flights, 825 movements a day, no more than that, because they don't believe that the operation is sufficiently resilient. That's going to continue right through July. Then we're going to see it slightly increase to 850 movements a day. Meanwhile, Heathrow is going to possibly impose last-minute cancellations if needed.
Now, I think one of the things that a lot of people watching this right now might be thinking, or listening, of course, you can on radio or online, might be thinking is, how early do I have to arrive before my flight?
Really good point. Now, we've got news in from Amsterdam where they've got really serious problems with their security search operation. They are actually saying, Patrick, do not arrive more than 4 hours early. You are not welcome, they say. I mean, nothing personal, Patrick. They're saying that to everybody. But
most of the countries say that about Brits, to be fair. But carry on, Sam. Sorry, carry on.
They're saying, we're not going to let you in because if you turn up too early, you're actually spoiling things. So suppose, now, I just imagine somebody's got a 9 o'clock flight tomorrow from Gatwick to Florence, say, just to pick something at random. Now, you could, one could arrive at 4 o'clock in the morning and be absolutely sure that you're going to make it. However, you are then getting in the way of people who've got flights at 6, 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning because you're in the queue in front of them. So my view is if you're carrying cabin baggage only, and if anybody possibly can get away with cabin baggage only, it's going to make your life much easier. Turn up maximum 2 hours beforehand. Otherwise, maybe 2.5. That's the most I would allow, and that means that hopefully it will be relatively smooth for everybody.
Simon, can I just say, you are the best in the biz at what you do. Simon Cole there, thank you very, very much. A travel expert, travel guru as well there, isn't he? So, look, I hope you're not too badly affected, people, but crucially, it looks like I'm getting away all right. And that's the main thing. Right, GB Views now, GB Views, GBNews.uk. Let's have a look at some of these. Cliff's been on. Good stuff, Cliff. Most of these idiots striking were probably happy enough to take money off the government for furlough. It's hard to argue with that. Leslie as well. In Cheshire as well. OK, good stuff. That's my neck of the woods. Next time, let me know exactly where in Cheshire. She goes... It could be a he, I suppose, modern world. Anyway, BT going on strike. I and thousands of others lost their jobs and livelihoods with BT when they outsourced their jobs to India. The unions did nothing to stop the outsourcing by calling strikes. Then why now? It's purely political. Now, first and foremost, Leslie, I'm very, very sorry to hear about what's happened. I hope you're back on your feet now, of course. It was a tough time for all of us, although this sounds like it might not have been COVID-related. It's a business decision to move things to India, so I hope you're all right now. But you make a cracking point. This is political, isn't it? I'm absolutely sure of it. They've had years to strike, really. It's political, but it's also... I just want to say this. I think it's a bit selfish, OK? Because We are now in a time of national crisis. And this is one of the reasons why I really fear for this country, Leslie, actually, because, you know, you like to think, don't you, we'd all rally together, a bit of the Blitz spirit, OK? We've got a cost of living crisis, we've just got out of COVID, all of this stuff. And actually, what's happening instead is a lot of our key public services have decided that now is the time to strike. And I just don't agree with that. Anyway, Kate's been up. Thanks, Patrick. Donated to set up... oh, here we go. Good stuff. Yes, we had a charity on before called K9 International. That's a K and the number 9. Basically, that chap is in Ukraine. And what he's been doing is he's been essentially rescuing dogs and cats, really, providing them with loads of food and just helping animals out in a war zone. Now, I said it before, I'll say it again. Look, you know, OK, I do think humans are more important than animals, unfortunately. Sorry, everyone out there. So, sorry, vegans. But I do think that humans are more important than animals. However, in that situation as well, animals really, really suffer during a war zone. And it's incredible that people go out of their way. We need people to go out of their way to help animals, like our guest previously, and that's K9 International. And Kate has now set up a direct debit for them. Kate in Leicester there, so that's great stuff. Thank you very, very much. And another Leslie. We've double Leslie'd. Well done, Patrick, for bringing us the brilliant interview with K9 Rescue International. There you go. I will be donating. So it looks as though, ladies and gents, we may well have raised some money to help people to actually... well, I don't know, save animals in a war zone. But there we go. Keep these views coming in, people. I absolutely love to hear from you. gbviews@gbnews.uk. But let's round off this hour with some stories that you might have missed, some headlines that you might have missed. So it's been 6 years since Britain voted to leave the EU. And a new poll by Ipsos UK has found that almost half of Brits say that Brexit has made their daily lives worse. Idiots. That figure has risen from 30% in June 2021 to 45% now. Now, the public is especially negative about the level of agreements between the EU and the UK on, here we go, 2 issues. Managing illegal immigration across the English Channel and managing border checks on goods travelling between Northern Ireland. Now, I was joking before when I called more than half of the British public idiots. We are, of course, the People's Channel. However, those are 2 very, very good points. And this is the thing. Can I just politely say, I don't think this is the fault of Brexit. I think this is the fault of the Brexit deal, right? So almost everyone who voted for Brexit at some point in their top 3 reasons will have had immigration. And we've not sorted that, have we, really? We've not, right? So there is that. And, of course, border checks on goods travelling between Northern Ireland as well is a massive issue with our Brexit deal. Boris Johnson said he wants to get Brexit done. In a way, he did. The question is, did he get Brexit done wrong? And we'll have to wait and see about that. Although, to be fair, what Theresa May was going to do was, well, just not really do it, was it? But there we go. On the immigration issue, just 22% think that the EU and the UK interests are similar, while 43% think they are at odds, i.e. that we can't agree on immigration because we don't want people coming over the channel and they want to send people over the channel. So that's what makes sense. Anyway, a very sinister man dressed head to toe... It's a shift in tone, this, people. A very sinister man dressed head to toe in a gimp suit has returned to terrorise sleepy Somerset villages. So Yatton and Claversham, good grief, when will it end for the people of Yatton and Claversham, have been plagued by the latex-clad gimp since 2018, who appears late at night to stalk and terrify the locals. Despite arresting 2... Oh, people have been wrongly... Yeah, sorry, someone said in my ear, we've not got a photo. I think the issue there is we're not allowed to show a gimp at this time in the morning. Right, so, yeah, it's 10:53 in the morning on a Friday. We are not allowed to show a picture of a gimp. So, despite arresting 2 people in connection with the case, police are still yet to identify or stop a man known as Gimp Man. A woman and her boyfriend were the latest victims of the masked man who approached them late at night while they were walking home. Let's move on from the gap. I can't do that anymore. OK, right, so now, a little reminder that every single Wednesday, Mercy and I hand our show over to you, full of your ideas and what you want us to talk about. So basically, it's your show. We are very much the People's Channel. I hope that comes across. We try to read out your views as much as possible. We love the interaction. I love meeting you out and about as well. Increasingly, more and more people are stopping me in the street, but... enough about me being wrongly questioned about being Gimp Man. What you think are the most important stories? Get in touch and tell us. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Please tell us the subjects that need covering, the questions that you want answering, and who we should be talking to. We've had lots of emails yesterday, so keep them coming in. You can email us, and that email address is tothepoint@gbnews.uk. But keep all those thoughts coming in to us as well. We'll be back very, very shortly after your weather. Stay tuned, people. Don't go anywhere.
Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Another day of some sunshine and plenty more showers. More of the same into the weekend, but signs of things turning a bit drier, certainly as we head into next week. For the time being, though, low pressure is nearby, and although this high pressure is building in from the south, it is going to be another day of dodging the downpours. With the high closer to the south, however, it does mean fewer showers, certainly compared to recent days across southern parts of England and Wales. Now, the main focus for showers today is going to be over the North Midlands and particularly down the eastern side of England into southeast Scotland, and then weather fronts will bring more rain into Northern Ireland and western Scotland later on. In the sunny spells, temperatures creeping into the low 20s, 22 Celsius across the southeast. Most places, though, only in the high teens, and feeling cooler when the heavy showers come along across the northeast of England, southeast of Scotland. They'll fade away through the evening. At the same time, a band of rain crosses Northern Ireland and then spreads through northern England and Scotland. Eventually, some rain turning up across Wales as well. By the south and east, most places dry overnight. Temperatures in rural spots may dip down to 9 or 10, but mostly we're looking at 11 to 13 to start the weekend. We'll start with some sunshine across East Anglia and the southeast. There will be this line of rain from Yorkshire across the Midlands down through southeast Wales and into southwest England. That slowly works eastwards, kind of fizzling out as it does so. Showers following over northwest England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, but some dry and bright weather as well. And East Anglia in the southeast, mostly staying dry all day, although with increasing cloud. Here, 23, 24. Again, most other places, high teens, low 20s at best. So fairly cool through Saturday evening. Still a few showers around, but overall tending to become a little bit drier as we go through Saturday night and into Sunday. Sunday we'll still see some showers, mostly across the north and the west, but turning drier as we go through next week.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there. We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there. A very Very good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christie's, live on your TV, radio and online. Happy Friday, everybody. Right, now, make sure you get in touch with your views, as usual. GBviews at gbnews.uk. We'll be going to those throughout the show. But first, it's time for your latest headlines.
Good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister is facing calls to expel his former Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher, from the party after he quit following a drunken incident. In his resignation letter to Boris Johnson, Mr Pincher admitted drinking too much and embarrassing himself and others at an event on Wednesday evening. Labour's questioning how he's still allowed to be a party member and say the Conservatives are mired in sleaze and scandal. Shadow Attorney General Ellie Reeves told GB News this is just the latest in a string of incidents.
This is a Conservative government completely mired by sleaze, and it just isn't good enough. You know, we had 2 by-elections last week. One because a Conservative MP was convicted of child sex abuse, and in the House of Commons chamber.
Secretary of State for Wales, Simon Hart, told GB News it's too early to say exactly what action should be taken.
This only came to light, don't forget, at about 8 o'clock last night, so it's early days yet in terms of how the Chief Whip and others decide to proceed, ascertaining precisely what the facts were, making sure that people who felt exposed to the particular story get properly looked after. There's quite a lot of moving parts to this which need to be resolved during the day.
Russian missile strikes have killed at least 19 people in the Ukrainian port city of Odessa overnight. Officials say the attacks destroyed residential buildings and 2 holiday camps. Emergency workers are still looking for survivors. Over 30 people are understood to have been injured. The Kremlin have denied firing rockets towards civilians. In his daily address, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Moscow is still focusing its firepower in the east of the country.
The situation in Donbass remains the harshest. The fire superiority of the occupiers is still felt very much. They simply took everything from their reserves to hit us in the Luhansk region, in the Donetsk region. I'm grateful to everyone who defends our positions in such conditions. It's true heroism.
The Foreign Secretary says the UK won't rest until Hong Kong has its freedom back. A warning, the following contains flashing images. The comments come as Chinese President Xi Jinping attended celebrations marking 25 years since the UK handed the territory over to China. During the visit, President Xi said the one country, two systems model of ruling Hong Kong works and must continue. It follows recent international criticism of China for increasing its control of Hong Kong and stifling free speech. Police have released an e-fit image of a sex attacker they're hunting in East London, who they warn may have struck more than once. A 24-year-old woman was subjected to a serious sexual assault on the 3rd of June after a night out in Newham. She described the suspect as being of Asian appearance and possibly in his mid to late 30s. Detectives are urging anyone who thinks they recognise the man to get in touch. Police Scotland officers are to withdraw their goodwill in a dispute over pay. Although they're banned by law from striking, the move's being called the most overt demonstration of action by police in Scotland over 100 years. From 5 o'clock this afternoon, off-duty officers won't take radio equipment home with them, nor will they start their shifts early. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon urged those involved to work together constructively. Nurses and pharmacists will now be able to certify sick notes. The move is part of plans to help alleviate pressure on NHS GPs. Other health professionals, including physiotherapists, can also issue the documents, which are now called fit notes. The new changes cover England, Scotland and Wales, with Northern Ireland expected to follow suit. And millions of families are having to pay an extra £250 a year on energy bills because of poorly insulated homes. Councils across the UK say 3 million households are paying extra as heat is wasted through the walls, roofs and windows. The local government association is calling for a redoubling of efforts to insulate homes to help those struggling with the rising cost of living. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens now, though. It's back to Patrick with To The Point.
Good morning, everybody. You very nearly made it through the week, OK? Just a few hours now until the weekend. But this is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christie's, on your TV, radio and online. We've got a great show lined up for you to kickstart your day. So here is what's coming up in this hour. So, Tory Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher, ironically named that, has resigned from the government following allegations that he groped 2 men while intoxicated last night. Now, I'll be asking whether or not there is an endemic sexual misconduct problem in Westminster. Have you got sick of dealing with customer helplines for support with your energy provider? Recent data shows that they have one of the worst satisfaction records in the UK. Now, has this had an effect on you? Get in touch with your nightmare hold line stories, OK? And Lewis Hamilton has hit out at older F1 pundits and drivers, saying that they should have their platform taken away following comments made by Nelson Piquet and Bernie Ecclestone. Now, does this threaten free speech? Or should their words merit punishment? Well, there's a lot to get stuck into there, by the way, because F1's going through the ringer a bit at the minute, so we'll do all of that a bit later on. But we have all of that coming up and much, much more across the programme. Get in touch, as always, people, as loads of you have. I've got your views in front of me here. I've got your views on front of my laptop as well. GBviews at gbnews.uk. Let's do the absolute lot of it. Right, now Tory Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher has now resigned from the government following his intoxicated behaviour at the Carlton Club, saying that he had, quote, drunk far too much and had embarrassed himself and others. Now, the Tory MP for Tamworth, which is in Staffordshire, is alleged to have groped 2 fellow mayor guests at the event. In his resignation letter, he told the PM, quote, I owe it to you to resign. Well, joining me now is our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. Tom, thank you very much. What's the latest?
Well, it's interesting looking at this resignation letter. It doesn't itself talk about groping. That is news that we learnt after we learnt of that.
Is it confirmed or is it allegations?
These are allegations, but they're widely reported allegations, and it would be odd for Chris Pincher himself to allude specifically to what he was accused of in his resignation letter. So there's those 2 parts there. One of the interesting political sides of this is that the government initially, a source within Number 10, put out a statement saying that Chris Pincher has done the right thing by resigning. He has acknowledged his culpability. He has, and that should, to some extent, be the end of the matter. Now, that did not go down that well last night. And this morning, we've seen the government backtracking a little bit there because, of course, there have been calls for investigations, whether police investigations or whether internal parliamentary investigations. Initially, the government said, well, look, he's done the right thing. He acknowledged he got too drunk and he acknowledged wrongdoing. But on the other hand, this is more than just wrongdoing. This is sexual assault that has been alleged. And to some extent, we've seen members of Parliament lose the whip for less. So if we look back to the by-elections that just took place on the 23rd of June, one of those by-elections was for a member of Parliament who had watched pornography in the House of Commons twice. Now, is watching pornography in the House of Commons, grim though it is that a greater or a lesser offence than allegedly groping 2 individuals?
Well, this is it, isn't it? This is it. And I mean, it's a low bar, isn't it? But we have to ask these questions. It's not the first time he's had to resign, though, is it?
This is true. Back in 2017...
What was that for?
Back in 2017, he faced allegations. Now, it must be said that these allegations were investigated and I believe he was cleared after those investigations. But clearly there had been questions beforehand and he then became a housing minister and then Deputy Chief Whip just in the most recent reshuffle. But clearly what's going on now is bigger discussion around the culture of Westminster as a whole, because this is not the first sexual assault allegation we've heard in this Parliament. Indeed, we saw the SNP MP, Patrick Grady, had allegations against him. We saw, of course, those 2 by-elections after one conviction of Imran Ahmed Khan, the Conservative MP for Wakefield, who resigned after being convicted for child sexual assault. Yes, we had, of course, the Tiverton by-election as well after the impropriety of watching pornography in the House of Commons. We've just and of course there's the anonymous member of Parliament who has been told to stay away from Parliament, who has yet to be charged but was arrested on suspicion of rape. So this is really quite serious in terms of the sheer number there. Although, on the other hand, what some MPs will say is there are 650 members of Parliament. You could name a handful that have done things wrong, although it does seem like a pretty high proportion in the context of everything.
Look, it does. Of course it does. And now I'm just having a look. Sorry, Tom, she kind of was speaking to Void there for a second, because I was looking on my laptop here at the Carlton Club. Now, I've been. I'm sure you have as well. And, you know, it's a relatively exclusive place, I suppose, you know. And is it saying more about the culture at the Carlton Club than it does about Parliament?
Well, it's really interesting looking at what happened with the Carlton Club during the pandemic. Many members of Parliament, particularly a lot of the new members of Parliament, Conservatives, this is Carlton Club, it goes back a long time being the club of the Conservative Party. In fact, the 1922 committee was founded off the back of a meeting that was held in the Carlton Club. This is the history of the Conservative Party in a gentleman's club. And to some extent, this became a more significant venue during the pandemic because all the bars in Westminster were closed or restricted. And what you found was a lot of members of Parliament made the short trip across St James's Park to go to the Carlton Club instead. And on many evenings, if there aren't votes that MPs have to get to very quickly, they would much rather drink in the Carlton Club than in Parliament because of all of the scandal that has gone on in and around Parliament, and of course some of the restrictions there as well. So potentially what we're seeing there is just a shift of what's gone on, away from Stranger's Bar and towards the Carlton Club.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out... Now, look, obviously, certainly would never want to make light of... Indeed, I'm not making light of any kind of, sexual impropriety or anything like that whatsoever. But I'm trying to figure out whether or not there's a disproportionate number of people in Parliament who do this kind of thing, or whether it's a reflection of how many people in wider society do this kind of thing. I suppose there's almost no answer to that, really, is it?
It's a really hard question to ask. Of course, there's a greater spotlight on members of Parliament. It's hard to know what exactly goes on in wider society without that same spotlight. Of course, we do hear so often about the media, about... about senior society, people who are running companies.
People in the top of the city. I mean,
we do hear a lot about other sectors as well. I've worked in politics, I've worked in journalism, I've worked in media in this sphere for as long as I've worked in London. It's not perhaps for me to compare other industries, but you do, of course, hear stories about what goes on at Christmas parties, what goes on elsewhere, that perhaps what's going on in Parliament is reflective of wider society. And that's a horrible thing to say. It's a really horrible thing to say. But it is a valid question to ask. Is this a problem with our politics or a problem with our culture more widely?
Look, absolutely, or indeed at barbecues. Right, Tom Harwood, thank you very, very much. As always, our political correspondent there. Right, we're going to hit up some views now, people. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Now, there's a mixed bag here in the inbox. Now, it's important to say that regarding this Chris Pincher stuff, really, with the allegation is, well, I mean, it's kind of admitted, I suppose, but that he got a bit too boozed up and groped a couple of blokes in the Carlton Club, which is it's a members' club, right? OK, allegedly. I mean, that's the allegation, right? Obviously, that's the allegation. He has now resigned and his resignation has been accepted. So, there's that, right? But there we go. A mixed bag in the inbox here. OK, some people are saying, OK, look, we all have one too many. Elizabeth, for example, is saying, well, we've all had too much to drink and done some stupid things. well, I mean, I can vouch for that myself personally, Liz. But what I will say is we don't know the full details of this yet. And, you know, it may well not be as straightforward as that, right? So we can't really jump to conclusions at all. Either way on it. So we're just going to have to leave that one there. Lots of reaction as well to the Royal Mail stuff earlier on. So we did 2 hits on the Royal Mail because basically they might go on strike over pay. Now, that's directly over pay, so it doesn't appear to be over working conditions. Essentially, it's the old classic, isn't it? Pay has not gone up in line with inflation. Here we go again. But also, they are conveniently celebrating 50 years of Pride, and they've released some special edition stamps. And some of these stamps ticked all the boxes. In fact, is there any chance, I don't know how easy this is there any chance we can bring one of these stamps back up, people? Because one of them ticked every single box that you could possibly imagine. I've been told no, so I'll talk you through it. It had a woman with purple hair in a wheelchair, right, OK, who I'm assuming was lesbian. We had a trans Sikh, which is interesting. We had 2 older women who looked like librarians kissing, and I'm pretty sure the other one was just a gay man with wings like an angel, right? So, I mean, I'm amazed they managed to fit all of that into one stamp, OK? Oh, we got it. Oh, no, that's a different one. But still, you know, carries on. But no, it's fine. I mean, it's still on point, isn't it? This sums it up. No, this sums it up. There's another one, though. Well, oh, yeah, we're rolling through them. Let me talk you through it. So, Gay Pride, Lesbians Unite on a stamp, which is ironic, really, isn't it? Because it makes it look like lesbians are going on strike like the Royal Mail are. But anyway, this is the one. We've hit the money here, people. If Liam Halligan was here, he'd say, you're on the money. Keep it on the screen. We've got the trans and rainbow flag, big trans Sikh, gay man with angel wings, and I think a crown. I believe that's a lesbian couple at the back, and then a disabled lesbian in a wheelchair. And, you know, look, whilst I'm saying all of that is fine, what I am saying is that is just... it almost diminishes it for me, personally, because it's so on the nose, isn't it? It's so ridiculous. Like, you can just tell that the person who's designed that is probably a straight, white, middle-class bloke who's gone, right, what do I need to do here, Garrick? We've got to do something about the Pride stuff, and they've just tried to tick as many possible boxes in one stamp as possible. But anyway, there we go. So we've got loads of your views coming in on that. A lot of them I can't read out, to be fair. But anyway, yes, keep these views coming in. GB Views at GB News. But after the break, we talk all things Formula One. There's a lot to get stuck into here, OK? It's more interesting than it sounds. Ahead of this weekend's British Grand Prix, including a controversial jewellery ban against Lewis Hamilton, allegations of racism from champion Max Verstappen's girlfriend's dad, which is a tenuous link, but there we go. And, of course, whether F1 bosses are perhaps too chummy with Vladimir Putin. That is all after your weather.
Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Another day of some sunshine and plenty more showers. More of the same into the weekend, but signs of things turning a bit drier, certainly as we head into next week. For the time being, though, low pressure is nearby, and although this high pressure is building in from the south, it is going to be another day of dodging the downpours. With the high closer to the south, however, it does mean fewer showers, certainly compared to recent days across southern parts of England and Wales. Now, the main focus for showers today is going to be over the North Midlands and particularly down the eastern side of England into southeast Scotland, and then weather fronts will bring more rain into Northern Ireland and western Scotland later on. In the sunny spells, temperatures creeping into the low 20s, 22 Celsius across the southeast. Most places, though, only in the high teens, and feeling cooler when the heavy showers come along across the northeast of England, southeast of Scotland. They'll fade away through the evening. At the same time, a band of rain crosses Northern Ireland and then spreads through northern England and Scotland. Eventually, some rain turning up across Wales as well. Further south and east, most places dry overnight. Temperatures in rural spots may dip down to 9 or 10, but mostly we're looking at 11 to 13 to start the weekend. We'll start with some sunshine across East Anglia and the southeast. There will be this line of rain from Yorkshire across the Midlands, down through southeast Wales and into southwest England. That slowly works eastwards, kind of fizzling out as it does so. Showers following over northwest England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, but some dry and bright weather as well. And East Anglia in the southeast, mostly staying dry all day, although with increasing cloud. Here, 23, 24. Again, most other places, high teens, low 20s at best. So fairly cool through Saturday evening. Still a few showers around, but overall tending to become a little bit drier as we go through Saturday night and into Sunday. Sunday we'll still see some showers, mostly across the north and the west, but turning drier as we go through next week.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. A news hour that comes with a trigger warning. Scorching hot opinion with prominent guests saying the unsayable and a little bit of weekend fun thrown in. Unlike other broadcasters, I won't be forgetting what the B in our name stands for. So Howie in for Real Britain Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News. Oh, morning, everybody. It's about to go 11:23. This is, of course, To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, right here on GB News Live on your TV, online and radio this morning. Now, Formula One's racing legends, both past and present, are going to be descending on Silverstone this weekend for the British Grand Prix. But whether Lewis Hamilton will be allowed to compete is another question entirely, because he is refusing to take out his jewellery despite the new FIA boss demanding he do so to follow F1 rules. Now, with both refusing to back down, they're obviously on a collision course. Now, this, of course, comes after his arch-rival Max Verstappen defended his girlfriend's dad after he called Hamilton a racist slur, saying he was, quote, not a racist, which is tricky given what he said. But no. Here to discuss more is friend of the channel and sports broadcaster Aidan McGee. Aidan, how are you?
Good, thanks. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm very well. Right, so why doesn't Lewis Hamilton just take his earrings out?
I think it's just an act of defiance more than anything. I mean, this is not a new thing. It's been rumbling on for months and months and months now. No one has actually forced him to take anything out. There is a risk, of course, you know, from a technical point of view, when he's in the actual cockpit of his, or the front of the car, there's a risk of burning because jewellery can actually burn up, obviously, in severe fire. We've seen how the cars go up in flames, and the heat that the metal attracts can actually melt someone's skin. It can melt bone. So it's not, no one's being kind of frivolous about it. It is a genuine safety concern. What's amazing to me is it was never really considered previously. Now, he would argue...
Sorry to interrupt. Can I just say why it wasn't considered previously? Because Formula One drivers used to be real men. Right? They did. They used to be total real men. They were called... Now they wear dresses and jewellery.
Yeah, possibly. But the suits they wear... So he would argue that some of his jewellery is contained inside his retardant suit. So... when it burns up, the suit would actually protect anything inside that casing, if you like, So it needs to be nailed down properly. It needs to be... It will get sorted out at the end of this season. They'll lay down new rules, and that'll be it. And he'll have to make a decision either way. There's even talk that he might quit. I don't think that would happen. I think he's got too much to achieve in the sport.
Yeah, no, I agree. But there we go. Now, let's just move on, because there's so much to get stuck into here when it comes to Formula One today, actually, which is a phrase I very rarely ever say. But Bernie Ecclestone has said a couple of weird things about Vladimir Putin, hasn't he? I think he quite likes the guy.
He said a lot of weird things, about a variety of different topics. Now, the problem with Bernie Ecclestone was that when he ran F1 up until 2017, you couldn't get a word out of him. He was very difficult to get hold of. He was also the chairman of... Well, he wasn't the chairman, but he was a significant stakeholder in Queen's Park Rangers Football Club, my club. And no one could get a word out of him in the 5 years he was involved with QPR. People forget that he was involved in football because he was the front and centre. He had, significant money invested in it, but never spoke. But now he seems to have become very loose-tongued in his old age. I mean, he was old 10 years ago. He's 90.
He's always looked old.
He's 91 now. He's 91 now. He's not frightened of being cancelled. He's worth $3 billion, $3.5 billion, about £3 billion. So I doubt he cares too much about what he said. Now, to be fair, in regards to his comments on Putin, he does know the guy because he was the one responsible for lifting the Sochi Grand Prix, as in the Russian Grand Prix, which was cancelled just a few months ago after the Russians' invasion of Ukraine. He was one who was responsible for signing that deal. So he knows Putin quite well and probably thinks he's a little bit misunderstood. But in terms of stupidity, this is beyond the pale. Even in the context of today's cancel culture and spineless corporations and spineless government agencies, this is particularly ridiculous. Now, I guess he can afford to say it because he doesn't have a dog in the race anymore, and he's completely detached from it.
Well, his dog in the race is Putin, really.
Yeah, well,
he's obviously mates with him.
Yeah, he's obviously mates with him, yeah, of course he is. But I would say that, looking at it now, that you have to wonder why people are interviewing him. I thought he looked a little bit uncomfortable in some of those interviews I saw yesterday. However, I do, Patrick, think he was in control of everything that he said. And I guess he thinks he can just have a free hit now.
Yeah, I think potentially he just doesn't quite get it. I think there's the potential.
Possibly. Look, he lives in a world. He's also always lived in a world which is detached from reality. We make that accusation about a lot of people, but it certainly applies for Bernie Ecclestone. He's worth $3.5 billion. He lives in Switzerland. He lives in Brazil. He lives in London.
He meets people like Putin.
Without doubt, yeah, which the vast majority of people don't get to do. Yeah. Also, it was only 3 or 4 weeks ago that he was caught, with a handgun in his luggage on a flight taking off from Sao Paulo. Now, he was allowed to board the plane. They said, oh, no, he admitted it was his. But then he said then he was allowed to board the plane.
He got a handgun?
Well, he said he owns it. I don't know what he uses it for. However, what we have to remember here is that most people would be escorted and arrested here, right? Even somewhere as lawless as Brazil.
Yeah.
But he was allowed to board the plane. So if you're used to that kind of being afforded those kind of luxuries and saying, never mind the handgun, you can still board your private plane anyway. I mean, it's no wonder that he comes out with silly things, because some of the things he said about Lewis Hamilton being able to brush off criticism from Nelson Piquet about using the N-word, it was particularly crass.
Well, you've seamlessly led me on to the kind of final bit of this discussion, really, which is that. So to talk our viewers through what happened there, then. What's that issue?
So Nelson Piquet is a famous driver from the 80s, early 90s, kind of Damon Hill era. He made a comment on a podcast where he used the N-word rather disturbingly to describe Lewis Hamilton. Now, I don't know if within Brazilian culture it means something different. We have had this...
The Luis Suarez argument, isn't it?
It is, yeah, I know. It was a different word back then. But we all, even that episode from 2012, that should teach us that it does mean the same thing everywhere. And it was extremely disturbing, to be fair, actually. Yeah. And so he's come out there. Now, there's talk that he could be banned from the paddock this weekend. Bernie Ecclestone has come... He said, well, I know Nelson Piquet. He wouldn't deliberately say anything that bad. He actually drove for one of Ecclestone's teams back in the 70s. So Lewis Hamilton's responded by saying, look, why are we giving these older voices, people who haven't been relevant in the sport for decades, like Piquet, even to an extent, Ecclestone hasn't been involved for 5 years now, Jackie Stewart, people like that, why are we giving these people voices? Because he believes that those individuals don't really want to see people like Lewis Hamilton in the sport. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. Some people would say that some of the criticism that's come his way in the last couple of years over other things has been justified. I mean, I haven't seen him smile for about 5 years, which considering he's won 7 titles, he's on the verge of history, it could be argued that he's the greatest ever. Could be the greatest ever. He passes Schumacher. Absolutely. There's no argument there. But even so, there's talk that the British Racing Drivers Club could ban... they suspended Nelson Piquet's membership. They own Silverstone. But I don't think it's going to affect the weekend. Once the race gets underway, qualifying starts today, 400,000 people at Silverstone over the next 3 days. It's an astonishing number. Yeah, exactly. This race is... I mean, Silverstone's a bit of an old track. It's not as glamorous as, say, Sochi,
It's
for
quite
example.
British in a way.
Oh, it's totally British.
It kind of adds to it, I think.
That's the charm. That's the charm. It's a little bit like, you look at Premier League football grounds. We all like Fulham. We all like Fulham because it's a bit old and a bit decrepit. That kind of stuff. Whereas you compare it to some of the other grounds, you think it's a bit soulless. So it's that kind of argument. However, I do think that once the race gets underway, Hamilton's nowhere in the race at the moment. It's all about Perez and Verstappen.
Good stuff. Mate, thank you very much.
Nice to see you.
As always, Aidan. And I hope you're on Friday Night Feast at some point soon as well.
I will. I'm going to bully my way on there,
Yeah, good. Yes, there we go, absolutely. How are you going to manage your property portfolio and that? I don't know.
It's red day today.
Good, OK, right, enough. Aidan McGee there, thank you very much. Friend of the channel and sports broadcaster extraordinaire. Right, OK, after the break, I will be asking how we can stay safer online after reports suggested that Brits lost over £1.3 billion in 2021 to online scams. But before that, let's have a look at this morning's news.
It's 11:30. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister is facing calls to expel his former Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher, from the party after he quit following a drunken incident. In his resignation letter to Boris Johnson, Mr Pincher admitted drinking too much and embarrassing himself and others at an event on Wednesday evening. Labour's questioning how he's still allowed to be a party member and say the Conservatives are mired in sleaze and scandal. Russian missile strikes have killed at least 19 people in the Ukrainian port city of Odessa overnight. Officials say the attacks destroyed residential buildings and 2 holiday camps. Emergency workers are still looking for survivors. Over 30 people are understood to have been injured. The Kremlin have denied firing rockets towards civilians. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says the UK won't rest until Hong Kong has its freedoms back. Her comments come as Chinese President Xi Jinping attended celebrations marking 25 years since the UK handed the territory over to China. During the visit, President Xi said the one country, two systems model of ruling Hong Kong works and must continue. It follows recent international criticism of China for increasing its control of Hong Kong and stifling free speech. And nurses and pharmacists will now be able to certify sick notes. The move's part of plans to help alleviate pressure on NHS GPs. Other health professionals, including physiotherapists, can also issue the documents, which are now called fit notes. The new changes cover England, Scotland and Wales, with Northern Ireland expected to follow suit. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.206 and 1.153 euros. And the price of gold currently stands at £1,487.07 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News, investments that matter.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory. twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there. Yes, good morning, everybody. It's 11:35. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, right here on GB News Live, as ever on your TV, online and radio this morning now, OK? Some shocking new scam figures have been released. So, UK finance figures, excuse me, I'm just about to cough. There we go. UK finance figures show a near 40% rise in push payment scams in which criminals pretend to be a trusted contact. Now, scammers are getting smarter, coming up with new methods to approach vulnerable victims. And it's no surprise that online scams are on the rise as more people work from home, spend longer online and work and shop there as well. Well, joining me now is David M., Principal Security Researcher at Kaspersky's cybersecurity company. Thank you very, very much for joining me. This is an absolute pandemic of scams, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. We're doing more online, more things. We're spending longer online. And the more we're online, the bigger potential attack surface we offer to scammers. And of course, you know, there is no shortage of things that they can hook onto to try to get us. So, you know, it could be sporting events. It could be natural disasters. It could be anything that's topical. COVID-19 was a good example because, we had this pandemic that everybody on the planet was interested in, went on for so long, gave them a great topic. But, it could be deliveries from courier firms, it could be sporting events, it could be anything.
Yes, indeed. But the thing is, I think a lot of people think that it's quite difficult to get scammed, right? That you've got to be some kind of, old lady who's sitting in her front room and she gets cold called by someone who's very convincing, or you get, that phone call, don't you, from someone claiming to be a Nigerian prince and all this stuff, But actually, it's very, very easy these days, isn't it? Because they're so sophisticated, even down to very realistic-looking websites and stuff like this. Just talk me through some of the most common ways. Well, no, let me rephrase that. Talk me through things people need to really, really look out for. If you are switched on and you're sharp and you can still get done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're quite right. It isn't that somebody's particularly gullible. It's the fact that actually the scams look close enough to what is real. If we look at an example, you're expecting a package, or maybe you're expecting 3 or 4 or 5 packages that week. Well, you may well expect the vendor to get in touch with you. You may well expect the delivery company to get in touch with you. It might be by text. It might be an email. There'll be a tracking number. And actually, the scammers are impersonating those guys. So you could well get hold of a text or an email. It looks just like the original. It tells you that, you're expecting a delivery. They need you to click on something in order to confirm your identity. Or they tell you that they've tried to deliver it and you weren't in, and they're holding it for you, but could you reconfirm your details? And it's all the sort of things that actually fall within the bounds of what is legitimate in terms of how it looks and feels. And therefore, it's no surprise, really, that people can be taken in by it.
Also, another way that they can get you is to pull on the heartstrings a bit. Now, there are websites that people use, and I'm certainly not trying to here, accuse the elderly of being, a bit backward when it comes to things like this. But naturally, they did not necessarily always grow up with the kind of technology that I've had the luxury of had all my life, and therefore, potentially, it's a bit easier to be taken in. And they do things like, online bingo chats, or these chat groups that you can just do. Just these things that people don't even think about. Scammers do, and they can because you never see these people, they can kind of sell you a story, can't they? It's like, oh, yeah, I only need £1,000 for this. But then it becomes another £1,000. And then it becomes... And before you know it, your life savings have gone.
Yeah, well, I mean, even before they ask for money, there's something that goes before that where they try to make contact, engage you in some way before it comes to the point of asking for money. What you say is true. I mean, if you think in terms of, the last couple of years, the online world, things like, group meetings and stuff like that, Zoom and Teams and all kinds, have been a lifesaver for people. And it's drawn online people who previously wouldn't have been, because it's their only way to have kept in touch. And therefore, you've got people who are far from being tech savvy, have suddenly realized what the online world can do in terms of its capabilities for them. And it's easy to be caught off guard.
Now, one of the things that I'm intrigued at is how people get your details. Now, I must say, it made me think twice. I was in A&E a couple of days ago, actually, as it happened. Rather embarrassingly, fell off a lawnmower. But I gave my details to the lady at reception, naturally. And now, this may have been a coincidence, but it didn't feel like it to me. Within about 20 minutes, I was getting I had 3 phone calls from 3 different people claiming to be, have you had an accident? Or just that stuff, right? That kind of stuff. How do people get your details? Do you think there's a chance that they've kind of just got a direct line to some of our public services?
Well, I would certainly hope not. I mean, sometimes it's easy to look at things that stack up as a coincidence and think that they aren't. But actually, I mean, it is possible, of course, for scammers to get details from legitimate companies. They are a target for the criminals as well. So if somebody launches an attack on a company that we use, they potentially, anyway, can get hold of people's personal details if they're not being protected sufficiently well. And they can then use that as kind of grist to their mill, really, to reach out to people. So, we have to trust companies, but they have a duty of care to look after our information as well.
No, exactly that, and it was, it was intriguing for me. It didn't feel like a coincidence, to be honest with you, the way that it went there. But look, what are some of the numbers that people can ring if there's action fraud, isn't there? I think, or do you just call the police if you think you might be defrauded?
Yeah, I mean, go to the police. Action fraud, certainly you can log an incident with them. You can get information, by the way, from sites like Get Safe Online, which is a great portal for information. That's run by the government, among other people. It's a sort of industry-government collaboration. Great information there as to what you can do to stay safe. The key thing is, don't respond to anything you weren't expecting to get. Protect all of those devices. Go to websites by typing them in yourself or, picking them from your favorites or your bookmarks rather than clicking on links in any messages. And of course, the key one is if something looks too good to be true, it almost certainly is.
Good stuff, David. Thank you very much. David M. there, Principal Security Researcher at Kaspersky's cybersecurity company. It's something we've covered a lot, and we're going to keep covering it here because this is an issue that affects, well, by definition, millions of people, probably billions worldwide, of course, but millions of people. And I do think as well, look, from my perspective, the times that I've been defrauded, it's not been that I've kind of actively made a mistake as such. It's been someone's got hold of my bank details. And I mean, I got done on Deliveroo twice, basically. So Deliveroo kept rather quiet, which I thought was interesting. And basically managed to get hold of a lot of my personal information off the back of that. And that happened a couple of times. So it's not been like my fault. I've not, replying to a silly message or this, that and the other. But I would just like to say, if people are watching this or listening on radio, watching online, etc., there's no shame in being defrauded, right? These things happen. It doesn't mean you're thick. It doesn't mean that you've made a massive error. It just happens to people. The main thing is that you notice it, obviously, and you report it. The worst thing you can possibly do is let it run. But anyway, there we go. Now, as many of you know, this is something that's very close to my heart as well, actually, people. And it's a bit of a strange one, this, for me. So I'm doing a show later on called Friday Night Feast, which is 7 till 9 p.m, which we all know is a bit weird, wacky and wonderful, and a bit of a laugh, really. It's a Friday night, entertainment show, right, with a little bit of news. Just enough news to be on a news channel. But this is an issue that is very serious, and it's very close to my heart. And I've been raising, myself and Nathan Dunn, who's been walking barefoot from John O'Groats to Land's End. He finishes on Sunday, hopefully. We've been raising money for the mental health charity mind. And so far, we've managed to hit about, well, collectively, between Nathan and I, about 24 grand, 25 grand. And we're really trying to get to 50 grand, OK? Now, Nathan finishes his walk on Sunday, and you know, he'll do it. He's absolutely not going to stop anytime soon, that's for sure. I was supposed to be stripping on stage, stripping on stage with the Dream Boys last Friday. Unfortunately, the times of the show changed, and therefore I just couldn't do it because I was supposed to be live on air at the same time as stripping, which actually you're not allowed to do. So, but we'll be doing that in September. So we are hoping that between now and September, we will hit that magic target of £50,000. It's justgiving.com/fundraising/challenge Christie's. But I actually caught up with Nathan Dunn, and he's walking barefoot, like I've said, so I decided I'd walk a bit barefoot with him. And the main issue that I've got is that blokes don't talk enough about their mental health, OK? Suicide is the single biggest killer of men under the age of 45. Just let that sink in. Suicide is the single biggest killer of men under the age of 45. Every single day, an average of 12 men take their own lives. And it doesn't have to be like that, OK? It's justgiving.com/fundraising/challenge Christie's. Now, I thought, look, if I'm raising a bit of money for this and I'm covering mental health issues, and my main issue about it is that I don't think enough blokes talk about their mental health openly, I think it's only right that I put my money where my mouth is, and this is what happened when I caught up with Nathan Dunn.
The idea of the walk, the challenge, was that it's a physical representation of what it's like to be in my mind every day. It's that pain, this pain is the same. And I don't think it'll ever be the same as how sort of painful it's been inside my mind. But like many, I went through a lot of different types of trauma and survived my childhood. You know, I didn't live it. Always with the mentality of just make it to being an adult, and once I get there, I'll be able to look after myself. And that's what I did. I grew up and became an adult, and everything was going good. And it was then when I was in a position where I weren't surviving anymore, that I started to feel even worse. Like this cloud that had always followed me around was now no longer a cloud. It was more like a storm that was coming. The next thing, I was standing on the bridge, and all I could hear was me breathing. I was breathing dead heavily, and I was like shaking. And I don't know how long I stood there for, but I stood there for however long it was. And my immediate thing was to like start feeling for my phone. Maybe to try and ring someone. I don't know what I was going to do, but I didn't have my phone.
Right.
And then I realised I don't have anything actually. There's nothing. I've got nothing. And then I felt a little like lump in my pocket. So I put my hand into my pocket, and it was this.
So this is a 10p piece, obviously, normal one, yeah. Yeah,
and that was what was in my pocket, and I literally, because it was a coin, you know, what do you do with a coin? You flip it. So I said it out loud as well. I stood there and said, if I'm meant to be here, let's find out. So I flipped it. Heads, I jump. Tails, I don't.
So heads, you would have jumped?
Yeah. So why was heads for me to jump? Because I saw jumping as the positive option, as the option of what I should do. And it landed on tails. And I remember I got down, I burst out crying. And so the first thing was I felt embarrassed and ashamed to speak about it. And then the second thing, obviously, being a man is...
Well, this is an important point. Go on, yeah.
Yeah, it's not accepted. It's kind of looked upon as weakness. You can't cry, you can't talk about your emotions.
You've got to be brave, you've got to be stoic, this, that and the other.
You've got to be strong. And one of the things I've learned from this journey is weakness and vulnerability are two separate things. And I always thought showing my emotions and being vulnerable was being weak.
Yeah.
It's not.
One of the main reasons why I wanted to do this today, as well, apart from to meet the legend himself, of course, and do this stuff and hopefully raise enough money for charity, was I would feel a bit disingenuous, really, I think, ladies and gentlemen, if I, did this and then wasn't open with you guys as well. And I think that's the point. The point is, really, I want people to be able to talk more about their mental health and everything. And I kind of yeah, I'm struggling to get the words out really because it is personal stuff. I'm fine now, by the way, which is great. But there was a period in my life when I was very, very, very low, and I didn't particularly want to live anymore, right? And luckily, I'm not there now. And I think for everyone else looking into my life at the time, they would have found that nuts, right? They would have found that ridiculous because it all looked all right. But I was waking up in the mornings, and I don't really know why. I haven't had any trauma in my life, really. There's nothing that I can really put my finger on. I was waking up in the mornings, and I just didn't fancy it anymore. And it was a real struggle for me. And I remember one day I was in my car, and I was driving down a country lane, and there was a bit of like a pond, really. And the reason I feel comfortable saying this now is because it feels like such an out-of-body experience. I cannot imagine being there now. Right? I cannot imagine being there now. But it really entered my head to just go on, see if I can razz it into that pond, and it all stops maybe. And when I look back on it now, I think, well, what damage would that have done to my mum and dad, my grandma, my mates, everyone really, the girlfriend I was with at the time, for example. But you're not thinking logically, are you, when you're in that zone?
It's not you.
Right, well, there we go. And it's important to emphasise I am fine now, right? Okay, and so is Nathan as well, luckily. But look, we're not getting the tiny violins out here at all. I think the main point here is that it's really important for blokes to just talk, and, well, anyone to talk, obviously, but especially in this case, male mental health. And often, when people look into your life or they look at it from the outside, everything seems fine and great, and they couldn't possibly understand why you might be struggling. But it's a bit like an iceberg, isn't it? There's something on the surface, but there's a lot underneath. And I'm just trying to start a conversation, really, with people and just say, you need to talk, OK? Because it will get better. But if you don't talk and you're struggling, it's not going away, all right? Well, anyway, on Sunday, Nathan will have finished his 1,350 miles of his barefoot walk. You can donate, by the way, please. You can see the donation thing there, justgiving.com/fundraising/walk a mile in my shoes 22. That's Nathan's one. We've synced accounts. My one is justgiving.com/fundraising/challenge Christie's. Collectively now, we're up to £28,000. We want to get to 50 grand. The thing is, we can do this a few different ways, right? Because Nathan's finishing on Sunday. I'm going to be doing my bit, which is, a lot less strenuous than what he's doing, Dancing with the Dream Boys, which are male strippers on stage. That's going to be in September. So we've actually got until September to raise 50 grand. But if you do have any cash spare, look, I know times are hard, but come on, people, if you can save some lives, it's justgiving.com/fundraising/challenge Christie's. Right, I believe Nathan joins us now. Is that right? Is Nathan Dunn? Nathan Dunn's here, is he? Yes, he is. Nathan. Where is he? Come on, Nathan. Give me a bit of Nathan. There he is. Yes. All right, mate. How are you? You OK?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Well, I'm doing very well. All the better for seeing your wonderful face. You've nearly made it, mate.
Yeah, I'm I don't want to jinx myself, but I'm pretty much there. So it's been a lovely experience down here in the south. The weather's been great, and I've met some amazing people. And yeah, I've got one more bit of walking to do, and then tomorrow I'll see my family and friends, and then Sunday I'll do the final mile.
Do you almost not want it to be over? I know it sounds ridiculous because you've walked. This guy is going to set a world record, right? Well, he's definitely going to set the world record. There's no way he's stopping now, is there? So from walking from John O'Groats to Land's End barefoot, do you almost want to carry on?
Someone said, what are you going to do when you finish? And I was like, maybe I'll walk home. But yeah, it just doesn't seem real. Don't know. I think once I've finished and I get home, it'll kick in that what I've actually done. But at the moment, I'm just living each day in the moment and really enjoying as much as I possibly can. So.
Yeah, and I mean, look, people have just watched and listened. We don't need to go over what we spoke about before there, as we would normally do. I would normally say, "Oh, Nathan, how have you ended up here? This, that, and the other." But people have just seen that. Obviously, you've had struggles with your mental health, and that's fair enough. How's it been for your mental health doing this walk?
It's been the best thing I ever could have done, I think. Obviously, it's an extreme thing to do, but just being in my own mind each day and sort of battling with different thoughts and working things out with myself. You know, there's not been anywhere to hide when I've been on my own in the middle of nowhere, just me and myself. And then second to that, just meeting the people in the world that are, you know, like I've said before, I used to think that there were no good people left. And I've really, really discovered that there are so many good people out there. And now, whereas in the past I'd avoid people, I'd see people, I'd avoid them. Now I'm going up to them and speaking to them and sharing. You know, they're sharing with me, I'm sharing with them, and yeah, it's completely changed my life. And you know, when I get back, it's gonna change the direction of what I want to do. And yeah, I feel a bit of peace for the first time in my whole life. I feel peace, which is good.
Well, that's massive. That's absolutely massive. I'd just like to say as well a thank you. Since we've been on air, Nathan, look, the donations, I'm just looking at my personal page here, mate, but the donations have come in, you know, JB, interesting name, has donated in the last few seconds. And Dan Watson of this parish, so Dan Watson, who does the evening shows 9 till 11, of course, has donated 250 quid just recently. So thank you very much, Dan. And look, I would just urge everybody who's out there at the minute, and please try to share that page. It's justgiving.com/fundraising/challenge Chris. I believe Nathan has just gone, actually, by the way. But sorry, thank you very much, Nathan. Cheers for coming on. Nathan Dunn there, who finishes his walk on Sunday. We'll do our best to be there. Sorry, I didn't realise he just dropped off, actually, but there we go. Yeah, Nathan Dunn. Hey, he's back. There we go. Nathan, right, mate, good luck. OK, all right. Good luck to you. And yeah, so he finishes his walk. He's walked from John O'Groats to Land's End. And, yeah, I'll be finishing up on Sunday. I'm just going to say it again. I'll stop rattling the can in a minute, please, people. OK, but justgiving.com/fundraising/Challenge Christie's. Look, thank you, everyone, for an absolutely wonderful show. I've really enjoyed it today. We've covered the absolute lot of it. Cheeky little plug. I will be back at 7 p.m. 7 till 9 p.m. for Friday Night Feast, and you're not going to want to miss this one, OK? It's got crazy challenges, it's got some weird and wacky debates, it's fair to say, and we've only got Howard from Halifax, haven't we? There you go. All right, up next is your briefing. Stay tuned, people.
Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Another day of some sunshine and plenty more showers. More of the same into the weekend, but signs of things turning a bit drier, certainly as we head into next week. For the time being, though, low pressure is nearby, and although this high pressure is building in from the south, it is going to be another day of dodging the downpours. With the high closer to the south, however, it does mean fewer showers, certainly compared to recent days across southern parts of England and Wales. Now, the main focus for showers today is going to be over the North Midlands and particularly down the eastern side of England into southeast Scotland.